The man who found it was rather less impressed when he opened up this morning. I mean, normally you'd be clearing off graffiti, wouldn't you?
Yes, I was a bit annoyed when I seen that on my wall, thinking that's going to have to come off. And then it was like, okay, there's a Banksy in the corner. Right, let's get on the phone then to the head.
Now the school intends to cover Banksy's present with protective plastic to stop it being ruined by other graffiti artists. Oh, the irony. John Kay, BBC News, Bristol.
Well, John Brandler is the director of the Brandler Art Galleries. He's been collecting Banksy for more than a decade, and he joins me now live from Chelmsford. John, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Is it a real Banksy? Do you know?
It's a real Banksy. It's been confirmed from Pest Control, who are his authentication process, that it's a real Banksy, which is interesting because Banksy doesn't normally authenticate any street piece.
Why has he done it, do you think?
He's an artist. Who knows what artists think or do? They live in a different world. They see things differently. I think it's nice that he's done it in a school. I think it's important that he's done it within the school grounds. Obviously, somebody in the school must have let him in, because you can't break into these schools now because the security to protect the children is phenomenal. So there'll be 10-foot railings with spikes on the top nowadays for primary schools. So somebody must have let them in. It must have been by arrangement. This isn't just a casual turn up and paint on a wall.
It's probably worth quite a lot of money. Could you put an estimate on it?
Well, the last piece of street art that was semi-authenticated by Pest Control was a piece of a policeman on a door on a boxing club in the West Country, and that sold at auction for 400,000. And the piece before that was one that he wasn't authenticated by Banksy, but everybody knew it was by him, and that was the young boy sewing flags in Haringey on the Poundland wall. And the estimate when it was going to come up for auction was about £250,000, and the hammer went down at £750,000. So this piece, with authentication from Pest Control, with the history that's already known about it, I would guess that it would fetch anywhere between £600,000–700,000 if it was to be sold.
A lot of money for a school, isn't it?
It is a lot of money for a school, and I mean, what concerns me is that Banksy wanted this piece to be in situ. But the first time that the school says to one of the parents, we haven't got enough money for books, or we haven't got enough money for laptops, or even let's do a fundraiser, the parents are going to turn around and say, well, you've got £500,000 or £1 million sitting on the wall, why should I put effort into raising money for the school? The Banksy's been very generous, but he's put them in a very, very difficult moral position, I think.
Tell us a bit about the Banksys that you own.
I've been collecting and dealing in Banksys since 2003. Some have got certifications, some haven't. I agree with Banksy that he doesn't want to authenticate pieces on the street to stop them being removed, but I think the question should be, is it a Banksy, not who are you and why are you asking? But we've just lent 10 pieces to the big international show in Rome, the biggest ever show of Banksy's that's ever happened. 120 original works and 60 to 70 record covers, and it's sad that there isn't more coverage of that in the UK, but you know, fair enough. And what I like about Banksy is that what he creates is timeless. Just as Rowlandson did political cartoons in the 18th century, and Ralph Steadman did them for the BBC with Yes Minister and things like that. A lot of what Banksy does is timeless, and this particular piece harps back to Victorian and Georgian pictures of children with the hoop and the stick running, you know, with a wheel. That was a normal children's game, with the hoop and the stick, and so he's harking back to that, with reference, obviously, to it being a tyre, and tyres are used for demonstrations and for political statements. So he's managed to encapsulate the whole thing in one picture. And what, to me, as a Banksy admirer, is good is it shows he doesn't only do stencils, which, after all, is created in a safe environment back in the studio. he will go out on the street, schoolyard, and create a piece freehand, which this obviously is. He's made it totally plausible for the children doing stick figures, because that's how they would draw people. And he's saying to people, this is art, it's to make you smile, it's for enjoyment. You don't need 3 bottles of scotch and an art degree to understand what I've done. Just enjoy it, have fun with it.
Okay.
The sad thing is the value. And the value is that, I mean, some of his prints now are the best part of £100,000, which in my view is crazy. Some of the record covers that were done were sold at auction recently for just under £5,000. Again, that's the market, people wanting a Banksy. So I don't see how this school is going to be able to afford to keep it on its wall.
OK. John Brandler,
Forever.
we have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
More now in the news that scientists in the United States have begun injecting human stem cells into pig embryos. A research team at the University of California